Meeting of the Board of Selectmen of West Bridgewater, Wednesday, July 10th, 2019, to order. I'd like to remind you that please be aware that the meeting is being recorded for use on the internet and on our local cable station. Please join us with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as I said, welcome everybody here tonight on this nice hot evening. No public hearings, so we go right to the appointments, the warrants, Board of Selectmen business, Surge FY20 contract awards.
Yep, so we do this, Mr. Chairman, we do this every single year. We are part of a 20-member consortium with other municipalities. It allows us to save a lot of money by being able to bundle our procurement, and this is our local procurement consortium of Sursage. It costs us $4,100 a year, so I would ask you to approve the request.
And maybe a little explanation of the way we contract this thing to get the best deal, where we go out. How many communities involved in this?
There's 20 of them.
There's 20, so we buy it in bulk. Okay. Okay, if there's no other about this, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Voted. B, act on the seals, weights, and measure fees.
So you'll recall that we went to town meeting, and we asked town meeting as to if they could rescind the old bylaw in reference to sealer and rate fees, because that was a bylaw that actually stipulated as to what the fees are, and they hadn't been updated in 2 decades. So we did an analysis of 130 cities and towns. Our sealer of weights and measures actually does 4 other surrounding towns. This is his proposal back in January, but again, we couldn't act on it until town meeting rescinded that bylaw. They have now done that. His request is before you, that you could see, for example, for gasoline and diesel, the current fee is $20 per, and he's looking to increase it to $30. That would cost the entire, all businesses in town $750 more, so forth and so on, where the increase in the fees that he's requesting, because there's not a lot of sealer and weights that he has to do, is a little over $1,600 for the course of the entire year. But the fees themselves would be consistent with other towns and with the survey analysis that he provided us for the state. So as a result, I would ask that as the fees are presented, that the selectmen would agree to that.
So we'll be in line with other communities.
Correct.
Does the board have any questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the sealing rate increase.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. End of the year transfers.
So again, we do this at the end of every year. We know that we always have to transfer money to cover our snow and ice deficit, which this year was $134,000. Again, it was a fairly mild winter. It was cold. We had some storms in March. Still requires salt and treating. We only had 3 other budgets that went over. Wastewater treatment facility, which is managed under the Board of Health, that went over by $125. They historically do not go over. However, our septic system that is located under the COA field is getting older, and so it just required a little bit more work this year. The canine control, again, you can't help how many dogs you're going to catch. It only went over by $25. So, but again, I think the police chief does a pretty good job of managing that budget. In streetlights, historically, we do seem to go over. We had increased our budget $10,000 a couple of years ago. We're now over by $995, so we may have to revisit it. But the reality is twofold, is that, one, if you have a rainy period of time like we did in April, the lights come on earlier because they're on sensors. And 2 is that every time that we approve a new street light, we always incur additional cost. So the total that I'm looking to transfer this year is $135,545. We would transfer from our benefits budget. I have the money left over to be able to do it because that is chiefly where we pay our health insurance. and I need to, by law, make sure that I can provide health insurance to every employee in town. Obviously, some employees don't take it. God bless you. So as a result, I have the money in that budget to transfer, so I would be looking for the Board of Selectmen to approve that request.
So moved.
Is there a second? No questions or anything? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so voted. D, declare the 1986 Chevy D30 as a surplus.
So this is an old vehicle from the fire department fleet. This is what they used to use in order to be able to service forest fires in the wooded areas. It's a 1986. The body is right out. The engine is no longer working very well. It would require us to spend thousands of dollars, actually more, to bring it up to where it needs to be. It's obviously 30 years old. So at this point, the fire chief has asked that we take it out of the fleet. I have no problem with that. So as chief procurement officer, I'm asking you to declare this vehicle as a surplus vehicle, and then I'll dispose of the vehicle in the best interest of the town.
Okay, any questions on that? Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there
Second.
a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so voted. All right, vote on FY 20 calendar dates, and as usual, it's subject to change. And we meet on July and August, we meet once, usually we meet twice a month.
What was-
That's a roster of, like I said, it's subject to change if we have to change.
Is there a change from last meeting?
There is. So last meeting, you approved it, but you approved December 6th and December 20th. Those happen to be Fridays. I'm not sure how that got on there, but it did. So as a result, we caught it, and we amended that, so December 4th and December 18th reflects Wednesday nights, which is your customary meeting night schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you want the motion to read as amended, or
Or just as presented.
as
Please.
presented? Okay, is there a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So voted. Okay, action on Diane Perry's resignation from the Brockton area.
Motion to accept the resignation and send a letter of thanks.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so voted. All right. Ratify the non-union contract, Assistant Town Administrator, AR Director. Okay.
Motion to ratify the contract as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All unanimous, so voted. H, approve meeting minutes of June 5th, 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Accept minutes of the meeting of June 19th.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any
These are being accepted for review only.
Yes.
Right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
I so vote. Donation of old photos to Historical Commission for Old Howard High School. Well, that was given to me, and I brought them in, and that's where I went to school, and then we'll figure we'll donate these pictures there to the museum. And that's why I brought them in.
Sounds good.
Okay.
What year was that fire, Elvis?
1051, it was 51. Yeah. Yeah, we had no water at that time, so as you see, well, you don't have the copy of the pictures there's a little fire truck there that's got no water to do anything. So, of course, out of that, over there, we still have the Drury Bell, the bell over there to signify.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the grounds of the playground there. Right there in that perimeter, okay. Is there a motion to accept the photos? And there's a lady to donate. Can we send a letter of thanks to that lady? Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Communication reports from boards, commissions, and town officials. Is any communication out there? Anybody got any concerns there? I continue working on the bringing the lights up to par there. As you notice up on North Elm and Copeland, we have upped the lights up there, the wattage, so better visibility, and we're working now down there on Copeland Street and Main Street, which we're doing the same. We tried something and it didn't work out, so we viewed it one night at 9 o'clock and saw some things with changes, and so the gentleman called me from National Grid, and he's going to ask for a new purchase order, and that's going to be taken care of. So that should be taken care of in the next few weeks. And also, we had a meeting on discussion of putting lights at Matfield in Main Street and with the Mass Highway, and of course everybody, not everybody was there. Even the two restaurants, they didn't show up, so I don't know. There was some kind of glitch on how that information went out, but it lasted about 3 hours between that and the town hall review, and seeing that what we can do. But what I suggest in the meantime is increase that light there. And I talked to the National Grid guy. He's going to go down and look at that, and at least have some light, out on the main street to light there. Because I was told it costs so much for traffic lights and everything else that if we can do other things like up the ante on the lights and things like that, and I don't really know what we're going to do with that intersection, because the engineer showed me where if we widen the intersection there and go towards Nico's, they're going to lose a good portion of that building if the curb is put up there. I don't know if the solution is that, and I don't know how much land we own on the other side, but that's going to have to be all studied out there and work, and I don't know if we can move the road over. Well, we got one good-sized project there, but it's going to be worked on, and see what they can come up with there. It is definitely a problem. Even though we gave the park and across the street permission for Nico's to park there, it's very, very dangerous coming out on Matfield Street, even out of their parking lot. They come around that corner, and they mean business, boy. You got to be very, very careful you don't get broadsided. So, like we said, it is a problem, and we're addressing it, and we will keep you posted exactly what we're doing in the future here. But we're going to keep working on it. Okay, that's all I have. Is there any other comments from either one of you? And
I'm all good.
Denise?
No.
You lost for words? I don't believe it. Okay. All right.
Good.
Correspondence from the public to Terry McCosker. So we've gone through that. We have a new reporter, and of course we welcome her back to the town. No public comments. Well, David, I think I'm running towards the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two items under my report. One is an update on the East Street, East Center Street lights. They are now up and running. I wanted to commend Selectman Reyes. Denise, you did a nice job on that. As everybody knows, we had continued to run into some errors and some issues. And between all the vendors that are out there, and so at this point here, they are up and running. We have stationed a police officer up there, and so that way, in case people are still learning the intersection, we hope that when they see a police officer, they will slow down, and as a result, not run a red light or not recognize that there's a light there at all. So, but it's good to have that project finally up and running. In addition to that, they also repaved. So they took out all the old poor pavement and they put in new pavement. and so we'll see as to how that pavement holds up. We have an engineer that has inspected it. We will see how it holds up for the next couple of months. If we have to take more core samples, we will. If not, and it looks good, then our one-year warranty would start from that time. But at this point, it's up and running, the pavement looks good, and I'm glad that that intersection is done.
That's good, and I'm going to thank everybody who was involved in that. There's a lot of people involved in that, and I know it took a long time to do it, and thank you people for their patience too. But it was done the right way.
It was, and again, even though it took 9 months for us to get it done, had we waited for TIPS, Mass DOT, we'd still be waiting. So at least it's done now. The last handful of months has been a little frustrating, but like I said, it's done, and now we can move on, hopefully, to new other projects. Last thing under my report is in reference to an update on Pearl Road. As we all know, is that we went to town meeting, Article 48, to have Pearl Road accepted at town meeting. It was a fairly contentious discussion. The majority, by majority vote, the moderator ruled that it had passed. Some people questioned afterwards, namely Mr. Dupuy, who's in the audience tonight, as to whether or not the process had been followed leading up to town meeting. You'll recall we had met with town council that night. There was no conversation, instruction by town council that the process had been flawed. However, since receiving the information, I've had multiple verbal conversations with town council. They have done a review. They're going to send us over a formal letter. But it turns out that the process was not followed as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 82, Sections 21 through 24. Namely, there are two areas in which the flaws that were uncovered are fatal to the process, meaning that there's no way around it. First is that the Board of Selectmen must hold a meeting in which you lay out the road. In essence, you would determine the metes and bounds of the road. You should have a copy of the plan, so that way if anybody during that meeting wants to actually inspect it, they can, or ask questions. The Board of Selectmen also at that point have to vote to accept it as a public way, meaning that you're endorsing that the town should accept it as a public way. After you do that, you would then request a notice from the planning board. We had actually received a notice from the planning board, so that wasn't an issue. However, then once you finalized your plans, we had to provide them to the town clerk with at least 7 days prior to town meeting, so that way the public can review it. Since we never laid out, or the board never laid out the plans, there was obviously no plans to actually provide to the town clerk. The planning board did provide plans to the town clerk, but did it the day of town meeting. So with that said, it is clear that the process hadn't been followed. For those that question whether or not what the Board of Selectmen did in the process, is that if we go back one, please, is that on April 17th, the board heard from residents of Pearl Road. You'll recall that Planning Board Chairman Hugh Hurley was in attendance. And at that point, it was a discussion on the acceptance of Pearl Road as a town road. We discussed it. You listened to their concerns. And at that point, it was discussed that when the town meeting warrant was made available, is that you would entertain the notion of placing it on town meeting warrants. There was no vote. On April 25th, you took your votes then to place all the warrant articles at the annual town meeting, on the annual town meeting warrant. And you took a affirmative vote to place that warrant article onto the warrant. However, again, we did not lay out the road. You did not take any other votes pursuant to Pearl Road. And then on May 15th, when you did make your recommendations to town meeting on each warrant article respectively, you actually voted unanimously 3-0 to not recommend the acceptance of Pearl Road. By following the statute, it is clear that once you took the vote that you were not going to recommend Pearl Road, the process should have stopped at that point. Without your affirmative vote, it should never have been actually discussed and moved to town meeting. As a result, although it passed at town meeting, the process was not followed. There is a procedural defect, and therefore it is not a public way at this point of the town of West Bridgewater. There was a deed that was signed by the HOA prior to that meeting. Town council is still in receipt of that deed. as you know, the board never signed it, and as a result, the town council is just holding on to it at this point, but it's not been recorded, nor will it be recorded. In the meantime, as I've come into receipt of all the information, I have then had a conversation with Mr. Howard, who, I don't know if he's the president of the HOA, but I know he speaks on their behalf and is the one that presented all the information to us. I've explained the whole situation to him. He's obviously disappointed, but all I did was I informed him that unfortunately it is not a town road, it has not been accepted, and the only real difference that affects Pearl Road is that they have now been made aware of that in July versus in May. And the reason I say that is because where you voted against it on May 15th, the process should have stopped, and they would have been aware at that point that it could not have gone forward. This is not one of these things that you can have a petition drive. You can have a petition drive by residents for a whole host of issues or call a special town meeting. But absent your vote to actually recommend and lay it out, there's nothing else the residents can do. He's been made aware of that, and at this point, he's reconsidering as to whether or not he will repetition the board, because at this point, the positive is that this doesn't stop in any way Pearl Road from attempting to still become a public way going forward. All it means is that the process would restart. They would formally petition the board, and then the board, assuming it did not change its vote, the process would die. And if you did change your vote, then it could potentially go forward. And he is going to consult with his board and make a decision as to what next steps they're looking to do.
Okay, does the board have any comments on this? Thank you, Dave, for the presentation. It's got very, very clear that it wasn't going the right way, so now we just hang around and make it work and do what we're supposed to do.
Question from the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Administrator Gagné mentioned that there was no conversation at the town meeting with town council about Article 48. My question to the board is, when did town council review the warrant and each article? What date?
So the board wouldn't be aware of the date, but I am, is that I received a formal letter from town council dated May 21st, and it's a 3-page document that we receive every year. It provides us some guidance as to what each article is in reference to, and what the votes would be as a requirement. I think the spirit of Mr. Dupuy's question is that town council at that point should have provided us guidance as to what the process was. They didn't. The reality is that I am the person that is I'm supposed to be your professional administrator. I can't know everything. I didn't know the process. I could not advise you appropriately because I was unaware of it. It is true that through that letter, that town council should have advised us as well. I have had a conversation with the owner of the law firm, Mr. Gay, as you know, it's David. And I explained to him how frustrated I was because it embarrasses him, it embarrasses his firm, it embarrasses me, it embarrasses the board, it embarrasses anybody else. With that said, they made an error. And errors do occur. He's not happy about it. He understands I'm not happy about it. And on behalf of the board, I believe he understands that the board is not happy about it. However, I hope I answered Mr. Dupuy's question. It was on May 21st, and it was absent any discussion of process.
The second part to that question, Mr. Chairman, is because of that issue not being caught, they're now doing excessive amounts of work. Will they be charging fees for this particular work?
So my conversation with David is that they reviewed all the warrant articles. It cost us like $350. I'm not going to divide it by 48 and have them take off $12. Going forward, I am going to meet with them. They'll have to do some additional work, and I've asked David that he will not charge us. He hasn't given me an answer. He's taken into advisement. My guess is that he's not going to charge us, but I don't have a definitive answer on that yet.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Board, you have any questions?
No.
Okay, is there anything else you want to bring up before the meeting?
Nothing else.
Anybody out there want to say something? Okay, I welcome you here from the news media. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Thank you, and good night.
Aye.